Welcome to the Explanation Pro. The film is set in the Middle East, in an Afghan village. Sergeant and sharpshooter Jake Chandler check the surroundings to secure Sergeant Vic Mosby's special team. Their mission is to patrol in search of an American senator held by the Taliban in this remote village in Afghanistan. Jake notices an enemy and fires his first shot but misses. He immediately loads his second shot and shoots him right in the head. A short time later, another man arrives who is quickly neutralized by Jake. Next, the special team begins patrolling while Jake covers them from behind. Two soldiers reach the door of a house and enter inside. They find no one inside, and it is empty outside as well. The soldiers do not understand where all the other Taliban have disappeared to. They decide to continue the search, and the two soldiers in the house find bullets on the floor. Vic and another soldier enter a house, but the only thing they discover inside are dead bodies scattered across the floor. The elite squad assembles outside, and then they decide to go into another location, which is where they locate the bound senator from the United States. A soldier makes an attempt to rouse the man, who appears to be under the influence of something. In response to Sergeant Vic's request for a helicopter to transport the senator, the other soldier informs him that they are more than capable of sending a vehicle in most cases. During this time, a soldier who goes by the moniker Rich reports that he has seen dust on the route that they need to take to leave the town. At that very time, two military trucks pull up, and a special operation team exits one of them to retrieve the senator. They are suddenly ambushed by members of the Taliban. Jake, the sniper, takes out an adversary who had just emerged from hiding and was about to fire on the soldiers before he was killed. Jake seizes an automatic weapon and provides assistance to the special squad in eliminating the threat posed by the adversary force. As more and more of them come, one of the adversaries is able to successfully shoot a couple of the soldiers. While the other soldiers conceal themselves, Jake proceeds to kill Taliban fighters one by one, displaying a high level of competence. Soon after that, reinforcements arrived, but as the special team tried to get into the cars, one of them took a bullet to the face. This caused the team to lose one of its members. Jake and his partner make their way closer to the machine in order to exit, but they must remain vigilant in case there are any adversaries in the area. Shortly after that, Jake's friend gets hit by a bullet and falls to the ground. Vic is anxiously awaiting Jake's arrival, but the driver maintains that they cannot delay in carrying out the orders and must now depart. They achieve this despite the fact that Jake and a wounded Rich are left behind. While moving toward their destination, the soldiers make every effort to assist their injured friends. Vic has instructed them that as soon as they have delivered the wounded service members to the military hospital, they must immediately return to assist Jake and Rich. During the course of events, Jake ends up concealing Rich in a house by carrying him in a shovel. In the following scene, we meet another character who goes by the name of Janet. She is a photographer who is very determined. Janet wants to go with the soldiers to take pictures, but the colonel says it is too dangerous and won't give her permission. In the meantime, Vic and his team arrive. Janet runs to take photos while the wounded are taken away. Via takes her by the hand and pulls her aside to tell her to stay away from her team and not take pictures. Janet shows him that she is from NATO and says she has permission to be here. Vic takes the camera and erases the photos taken just before. Back to Jake and Rich, the two are still hiding in a house in that remote village. In the process, Janet and Vic get to know each other, and it turns out that the sergeant has created quite a reputation here. Janet, on the other hand, thanks to her contacts with Obama, has managed to get here. Vic recovers slightly, though still wounded, and thanks Jake for not abandoning him. When he asks what the plan is, Jake tells him that all they can do is wait for help. Once the command is contacted, the sergeant desperately tries to get permission from Lieutenant Colonel Jackson to be able to go back and rescue the two remaining soldiers in enemy hands. Surprisingly, the colonel states that they have few men and cannot risk going back there. They must necessarily wait for more reinforcements before going to rescue Jake and Rich. Disappointed, Jake leaves and breaks the news to his team, who are shocked. Vic tells his comrade to wait for his next orders, after which he goes to check on the wounded soldiers. Fortunately, their situation improves. Vic also takes a look at the senator and asks him about the ambush and what happened in that house. However, the senator is still under the influence of the substances and cannot speak normally. On the other hand, the wounded soldier reveals that earlier, he was repeating a certain name that begins with Abdul. Vic thinks he knows who he is talking about and quickly goes outside, where he runs into Janet by chance. The woman acts friendly with him. He tries to guess where she is from and says she looks like a spoiled girl with connections. Back to Jake and his companion, the situation is still calm. Rich reveals that his girlfriend sent him a letter saying that she left him for someone else. Jake tries to lift their spirits, saying that once they are rescued, they will receive a medal, and the girls will jump on him. On the other hand, the colonel orders the team to intercept a truckload of ammunition that could be a vital supply for the military base, now giving up the 2 men left in enemy territory. In the meantime, it begins to get poorly for the two. Rich gradually begins to panic as Jake goes to get water and a first aid kit. Jake leaves him a gun and then walks away. Once outside, Jake sees 2 Taliban approaching dead soldiers. Jake waits for them to leave and takes the backpack with resources. On the other hand, Vic asks Tyler how he happened to be in this situation and why he rescued the woman with the baby since someone could have followed them. Tyler says that on the way, his radio broke, and he could not call for help. Vic listens to the story but does not entirely believe him. Nevertheless, Vic realizes that if the enemies had followed them, they would already be here shooting at them. So, he decides to help the woman with the children and orders Janet to bring water and food. Vic orders a soldier named Detroit to repair the truck immediately so he can get out of there before it is too late. Then a soldier shows Janet where they store food and even gives her a gun to defend herself. Jack returns with resources to Rich, who is getting sicker and sicker. Detroit is still repairing the truck, but the problem turns out to be bigger than it seemed to him. Meanwhile, Janet and Bashir take care of the baby, but the woman speaks a dialect that Bashir does not know, and they cannot communicate. Suddenly, a terrorist appears and shoots Vic and a soldier. The special team immediately begins to counterattack, and Janet goes outside to take pictures. Vic grabs her and pulls her aside, scolding her. The sergeant suggests that Detroit flee to their truck to distract the enemies. In the process, the other soldiers cover him and neutralize the Taliban. Unfortunately, Detroit is shot and falls to the ground. Tyler runs toward him and lifts him up while the others cover them. Tyler is shot shortly afterward, and Detroit runs over to get the keys to the truck. Meanwhile, Vic and the others continue to shoot at the enemy, and Janet even manages to kill a couple of them. After several failed attempts, Detroit is finally able to get the truck going and pulls up next to the other car. Janet rushes to collect the woman who is with the child so that they can get into the vehicle with Detroit, but just as she is about to do so, a shot is fired, killing Janet. When the adversaries see the woman coming toward Janet, they quickly stop shooting and flee the scene. Janet's wound, which has already shown a lot of courage, is being treated by Detroit right now. In the meantime, Jake and Rich are both still alive, but Rich has developed feelings of remorse due to the fact that Jake stayed behind to protect him. Jake responds to Rich's inquiry as to why he is rescuing him by stating that he reminds him of his younger brother. Vic has a conversation with his fellow soldier, and the two of them are perplexed as to why the Taliban have ceased shooting. The sergeant is certain that the situation is related to the woman in some way. After that, they relocate Tyler's remains to the back of the vehicle. Vic's patience has worn thin, so he orders Bashir to find out what the woman is trying to conceal. In the meantime, the Taliban had made their way back to the isolated village where Jake and Rich were currently hiding out. Jake insists that they locate a vehicle as quickly as possible and get out of there. Bashir makes an important discovery while with the other group, which turns out to be quite helpful. The fact that the woman was revealed to be Abdul Aziz's wife, a guy who held a significant amount of power, caused the Taliban to cease firing when they saw her. Vic claims that she is now more valuable to them than a piece of gold and that the Taliban will undoubtedly return to collect her. The sergeant pulls his right arm aside and explains his scheme to him in private. He plans to employ the woman in order to free Jake and Rich from their predicament. He intends to engage in some kind of nonviolent dialogue that does not include the use of any weapons. Vic is able to convince the soldier, despite the fact that the guy believes that this is an insane proposal. In the meantime, Jake leaves the house to investigate the surrounding region. After breaking into a residence, he finds a radio and uses it to make a distress call to a nearby military outpost. A soldier gives him a response and tells him that assistance will be sent. At that precise time, Vic divulges his plan to everyone else, and they immediately get inside the vehicle. After his arrival, Vasquez enters the settlement and places a bomb in a hidden location. When Jake sees him, he wakes Rich up and urges him to get out of bed. Vic enters the settlement with the vehicle as Vasquez places further bombs throughout the community. Soon after that, a sizable number of Taliban come, and they congregate in one specific location. Jake uses the reflection of the light to let everyone know that he is now perched on the roof. After the soldiers have successfully removed the woman from the vehicle, Abdulaziz comes up behind them. In response to Vic's demand that his men put down their guns, Abdul bursts out laughing. After Vic discloses that he also has his grandson, Abdul instructs him to free the mother and child so that he can continue to ignore them. Vic agrees to Abdul's demand. Vic instructs the woman to leave, and when she approaches Abdul, who uncovers her face, she confesses that her name is Janet and that the baby is actually a bomb. Vic then tells the woman to leave. A little while later, Abdul detonates, and a deadly shootout immediately ensues. Vic and his men are outgunned and outnumbered, but with the help of a survivor named Jake, they engage in a firefight in which Jake uses his expert marksmanship skills to eliminate their opponents. Vasquez is given the instruction by Vic to detonate the bombs, but the detonator does not function properly. At that point, Jake shoots the bombs one at a time, causing the adversaries to blow up one by one. Everyone can now heave a sigh of relief now that the adversary has been ultimately vanquished. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.